All right, good afternoon, welcome back. Today we're going to start chapter 16. We're going to talk about the major civilizations in the Americas. So first we're going to talk about the Maya. And this that you see here is Chichen Itza, which is one of the great Mayan ruins, great Mayan cities. All right, geography and the early Maya. The region known as Mesoamerica stretches from the central area of Mexico to the northern part of Central America, which is going to be the darker green part that you're going to see right here. This is the region where the Maya created a great civilization, and around 1000 BC, the Maya began settling in the lowlands of what is now northern Guatemala, which is basically going to be this region that you're seeing right here. Thick tropical forests covered most of the land, but the people cleared areas to farm. They grew a variety of crops, including beans, squash, avocados, and maize. And maize is basically just their word for corn. The forest provided valuable resources such as animals for food and trees and other plants for building materials. So they basically had most of what they needed. The early Maya lived in small, isolated villages, and eventually they began to trade with one another and with other groups in Mesoamerica. And as this trading starts and continues, you're going to start seeing these villages growing into larger cities. As trade increased, the villages grew, and by around 8200, the Maya had begun to build large cities in Mesoamerica. Then this point is going to be what's called the Classic Age. The Maya civilization reaches height between 250 and 900 AD, so that's going to be the Classic Age between 250 and 900 AD. And this time in Maya history is known as the Classic Age. Maya territory grew to include more than 40 large cities. Maya cities were really city-states, each having its own government and its own king. So they weren't really, they were a specific group of people, but they were all kind of separated, much like the Greeks had been. No one king ever united the city-states into one empire. However, trade helped to hold Maya civilization together. People traded goods for products that were not available locally, and through this trade, they were able to get supplies for construction of their buildings. And you can see like their temples and things. You can see they have pyramids. These are pretty magnificent creations. Mayan cities had grand buildings decorated with carvings and paintings, and they built stone buildings topped with temples, some of which honored their kings. In the city of Palenque, the king Pakal built a temple to record his achievements. And that would have been what you're seeing here. This would have been the Palenque, it would have in Palenque, and it would have been to Pakal. Geography of the early Maya. The Maya also built canals and large paved plazas or open squares for public gatherings. Farmers used stone walls to shape hillsides into flat terraces so they could grow crops on them. So they're actually creating more areas of growing crops for themselves. Almost every Mayan city also had a stone court for playing a special game called Pacatak. Players used only their head, shoulders, or hips to knock the ball through stone rings high on the walls. The winners of these games received jewels and clothing, while the losers could be executed. So if you went into the game and you won, you would be showered with many gifts. But if you lost the game, a lot of times your whole entire team might be executed. And this would have been a Pacatak Stadium. And you can see like the ring that would be up on the wall that you would have to hit the ball through. And this would be where people would watch. Now, Maya culture. Daily Maya living was heavily influenced by social structure and religion. Now, the social structure of the Maya. The king held the highest position in Maya society, and because he was believed to be related to the gods, he had religious as well as political authority. So he reigned over everything, not just the land and the politics, but also over the religion. Priests, merchants, and noble warriors were also part of the upper class. Together with the king, they held all the power in Maya society. Most Maya belonged to the lower class, which was made up of farming families that lived outside of the cities. The women cared for the children, cooked, made yarn, and wove cloth, while the men farmed, hunted, and crafted tools. The lower class had to pay the rulers by giving them part of their crops and goods such as cloth and salt, and they had to help construct temples and other public buildings. So if you look at it, I mean, this is a lot like the Egyptians. If they went to war, the men had to fight, and if captured, were turned into slaves. Now, religion. The Maya worshipped many gods, including a creator, a sun god, a moon goddess, and a maize god. Each god was believed to control a different aspect of daily life, and this would have been just a small assortment of their gods. According to Maya beliefs, the gods could be helpful or harmful, so people tried to please the gods to get their help. So they wanted to try to, on a daily basis, make sure they made the gods happy. They believed their gods needed blood to prevent natural disasters or the end of the world. Every person offered blood to the gods by piercing their tongues or skin, and on special occasions the Maya made human sacrifices. They would sacrifice humans and animals to the gods. They usually used prisoners captured in battle, offering their hearts to stone carvings of the gods. Now, achievements, Maya culture. The Mayas' religious beliefs led them to make impressive advances in science. They built observatories or buildings from which people could study the sky, so their priests could watch the stars and plan the best times for religious ceremonies. With their understanding of astronomy, they created 2 calendars. One was 365 days, and they used it to guide their planting and harvesting, and then a 260-day calendar that was used to keep track of religious events. They could tell time accurately because they were skilled mathematicians. And that stuff that you heard about in 2012, worrying about the world coming in, that was the end of the Maya calendar. So the Maya calendar only lasts for so many years, and then it just starts over again. If people would actually, study history, they wouldn't have had all these worries going on. They created a number system that helped them make complex calculations, and they were among the first people with the symbol of 0. They used their number system to record key dates in their history. The Maya also developed a writing system similar to the Egyptians in that it used symbols to represent both objects and sound. They carved these symbols into large stone tablets to record their history and the achievements of their kings, and wrote in bark, paper books, and passed down their stories orally, which means they basically just told the stories and then passed them on. They created great works of art and architecture with jade and gold jewelry and huge temple pyramids. So here would be your jade and gold jewelry, and then this would be your pyramids. They had neither metal tools or wheeled vehicles to build these temples, and the Maya often decorated their buildings with paintings. Decline of the Maya civilization. Now, the Maya civilization began to collapse in the 900s AD. People stopped building temples and other structures, and they left the cities and moved back to the countryside. Historians are not sure why, but they believe there was a combination of factors on why this happened. Actually, they do have a very good idea because they've now anthropologically done some testing on people who had lived at that time. First, they believe there may have been rebellion from people due to the harsh treatment by rulers. I mean, that is a possibility. Second, they believe it's possible wars became more widespread and destructive, causing people to flee to the countryside. But they've also found that there was famine at the time, and they believe basically they had just overused their land. And so to the point where people were starving, there was a lot of sickness due to that, so it really wreaked havoc on their civilization. Another theory is that the Maya could not produce enough to feed everyone, and food shortages were common and widespread, and they know that to be a fact now. Climate change could have also caused problems, and scientists know there were droughts in Mesoamerica around this time, so it made it more difficult to be planting food and growing food. And Maya civilization did not completely disappear. Many of the natives in the region to this day are of Maya descent. Now, that's the end of chapter 16, section 1. Make sure you do the readings and get the worksheet done. Have a great day.